Welcome back to Mindful Endeavors. I am your host, New Age Alchemist. Joining us today is Garrett. Just before we start, as always, we make the disclaimer that we're not mental health professionals. We're not giving out any mental health medical advice or anything. If you do need help, please seek it. We do encourage that. We encourage people to keep these conversations going. That's the benefit of this, that we're just trying to talk about mental health, the outdoors, anything that could plays into that in terms of enrichment and how it's been deteriorated. So yeah, we always encourage the conversations to keep going, and hope you enjoy the conversation. And also, so if you do enjoy these conversations, feel free to share, like, subscribe, whether it's on YouTube or whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple, any of our hosted services. uh, the more support we get, the better. The more it means to us, and we definitely want to keep this going. Alrighty, so you're back for what seems to be forever now. No, I'm kidding. This is your third time back, but we know it's like you're one of the closest people I know, and we've talked about a lot of these things off camera throughout the time that we've known each other. So, really quick, for those that haven't seen the episodes that you've been on, kind of introduce yourself for a little bit. Are you having trouble introducing yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Shit. Might need to redo that one, but
I mean, to
I
start
don't
off with
know.
your name, like.
Uh, oh my god, it's high school all over again.
What?
It's high school all over again.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, can we not do this one?
You don't want to do this one?
I don't want this one being fucking recorded. Not with this fuck up.
There's nothing wrong with it, man. Just keep going.
Be honest with you, dude. Kind of hungover.
Oh my god. All right, Garrett, outdoorsman. Fellow human. What else do you want to add to that?
That's about it.
All right. All right. We'll just keep going with it. I mean, obviously, like you know, we like to have fun here too, so it's not a big deal. Just kind of didn't expect you to freeze up like that, especially because this is your third time being on here.
But also, I think it's the first time you asked me to introduce myself.
Is it really?
I think I've never introduced myself. You're always just like, "This is Garrett. We're gonna talk about shit."
Fair enough. Okay, this is Garrett. We're gonna talk about stuff. All right, so I brought you back on just because, again, conversations are always good when you're on here. Um, and that's kind of what we want to keep this going, right? So, first things first. Last time you were on, you did want to talk about stigmas of certain activities, and I know that you have hunted plenty of times throughout your life, and that's leading up to our topic, stigmas of hunting, specifically more for like conservation, and also the trophy hunting one, which kind of plays into conservation and sometimes for food and everything. So really quick, just kind of talk about like your experiences with that.
So, stigma with hunting in general, for just normal, it's just a lot of people just don't know where like meat even comes from because everyone just buys it from the store. So, I mean, their hearts are kind of in the right place where like you don't want to hurt animals, you don't want to like, go out there and kill them and hurt them or wound them, do anything like that. So there is like a level of care, but it's also ignorant because they just don't know. So they don't have that firsthand experience of knowing where the food comes from or having to go out and get it themselves. Whereas in reality, hunting for your own food or your own meat, it's much more ethical than even going to the store and getting it. Because factory farming is it's pretty brutal in comparison. At least when you're out hunting, the animal has a chance to get away, to save their life and do all that. But factory farms are just bred for slaughter. That's it. No chance, no life. So there's just that disconnect there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there really is, and I think a lot of it plays into what the internet kind of shows, right? Because I have talked about this with a prior guest that when you go out to hunt, you want to be as responsible and as self accountable as you possibly can because you are out in nature. You need to respect it. I know some people do find it difficult to understand why eating an animal, like how can you call it respect if you just murdered it or whatever. But there is such a thing as snout to tail, which I think is the most respectful way of, like, if you're going to take an animal, if you're going to take an animal's life, you don't want to just kind of like take all the like the muscle meats because that's what's appropriate or looks better or doesn't seem as gross, like eating like the liver, the heart, the brain in some cases and all that stuff. So I think I think I know now it disrespect that. I mean, disrespect sounds like a harsh word, but there's no other word to really say. In terms of like, oh, I'm gonna murder 10 deer just for the tenderloin, like, and throw the rest of it away. Like, well, no, that's kind of messed up. And I know hunters don't necessarily get into those kind of habits and such. But the problem is that you have sometimes like maybe an inexperienced hunter, somebody that's starting to get in, self-taught or what have you. They don't understand these things yet. It's not because you know they don't want to follow these practices, but sometimes they don't understand or they don't even know. Every once in a while you will find that asshole hunter that probably just doesn't care. I mean, that's a thing too. We're humans, we're flawed. Some people are not, in the best interest of others other than themselves. But that's kind of where, if the stigma is so strong around hunting, then it's kind of hard to get that information out. You know, yeah, would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, I would. Uh, I mean, really, people just need to educate themselves on it. Even if you have no interest in doing it, if you're going to take a stand against something, you should at least know what you're taking a stand against. And you may not agree with something, that's fine. But if you don't know the practice of it and what actually goes into it, how are you going to like really even be against it?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like I said, like the internet, it's an awesome place. It's an awesome thing that we have, but also somebody said like I mean, obviously the internet is not an exception to the what is it, the laws of, like, for every reaction there's an opposite negative reaction or an
Yeah,
opposite equal reaction. So I'm obviously butchering it right now, but
I get your
so
point.
you got my point, right? So it's like, for all the good stuff that comes with the internet, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes with it, and oftentimes, some place or whatever wants to make money, so they want more hits on whatever they're pushing out. So they take the most negative thing possible and push that out there because they know they can get people's reaction to it. So you might see like a video of like factory farming, like in the most gruesome sense, like we are talking about, like where they cut the pig's tails like without even any anesthesia, because obviously they if they're next to each other, they're going to freak out and start biting their tails off, and then that causes infection, so it makes it harder to produce meat, and you have to take care of a sick animal and all that stuff. So you see like stuff like that, and then you think, oh, that's how everything operates, so we just need to get rid of meat and such. um Not necessarily true, because I mean, like, you see like any like farms like holistically, like out in the Midwest, northeast, in the northeast, other places south, and
Mm.
you see that they're not really raised like that. Like, they're just out and about doing their own thing. Here in Texas, like, you see the cows just doing their cow things and just like
Oh
roaming
yeah.
around, and like, I mean, you'll see feedlots, but like they just go in there to eat and then they come back out and just do roam around, right? So there's definitely stigmas to that.
Well, when they're more free range, that's a lot more acceptable. But that's different than the factory farming when you get the privately owned ranches and they're doing that. But when you have like these major corporations who are just breeding hundreds of thousands of these animals, factory farming it straight in a line, straight into the slaughterhouse, and doing all that, that's not good. And
Yeah,
that's what isn't seen or really even talked about too often. Um, but it's I guess, a necessary evil.
Yeah, I mean, there's cases for that, right? If we try making those cases, we kind of deviate for what we're trying to talk about. But
Yeah,
I think a lot of the stigma around hunting still comes from market hunting, which used to exist, in the 1800s. I think was like that's kind of the reason, one of the reasons why the deer population was almost wiped out, right?
yeah. I mean, once you start marketing stuff like that, you tend to eradicate a species,
Yeah,
which is why wild game really. I actually can't really think of anything outside of fish that's really marketed in that sense. They can go to like certain stores and pick up ducks, but it's not wildly caught. They're usually farmed.
yeah. I don't. I mean, other than fish, really, but I don't think there's anything that's like. I mean, we don't. I don't. I think there was a regulation against market hunting, though, right? I mean, I think was it Teddy Roosevelt was the one that signed that, and because of that, you know, buffalo
Yeah.
are in healthy numbers and so on.
Yep. Population control.
Yeah,
Got to make. That's why they only have a certain amount of tags that they'll give out. That's why we have the seasons for hunting. And that's why the majority of the fees and stuff that come with hunting go to like land preservation and keeping the populations going.
yeah, which is stuff that a lot of people don't tend to really know. Um,
Yeah. And it's the same thing like with sports hunting. Like a lot of people are against it. I mean, personally, I don't do it, but uh, there is a benefit for it that isn't ever really talked about. And like you said, with the media, it just shows like some rich dentist going over into Africa and just indiscriminately blasting giraffes, because that's sports hunting. But that's not the case.
yeah, I mean, I laughed not because I find that funny, but because I knew that we were gonna bring at one point one of us was gonna bring up, that I knew it. Like that's the only reason why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because I find humor in that kind of stuff like that. Being pictured that way. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So um, a lot of times when you look at like things for population control, like when you see sometimes like the whatever, again, going back to whatever site, I'm not, trying to isolate any specific group or anything like that, but when you see somebody putting out the information like, oh, now it's legal to kill wolves, well, why? Like sometimes like that, like, because I mean, a wolf is something that you don't necessarily eat, right? It's more kind of
Mm-hmm.
for sport, but again, it goes back to what you were saying about the tags. Like, you give out a certain amount of tags because it's like, okay, the conservationists have seen that there's a huge population of wolves, so other animals are dying. So then that affects the ecosystem. So we need to balance it out by culling a few amount of wolves or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
foxes or something like that. Like you see in Florida, where uh, they at one point somebody released pythons. You know,
Oh, I heard about this.
yeah, somebody was like, oh well, I can't take care of it anymore, run free, and it's like, well, it's not native to Florida, and now they're just wrecking goats, chickens, everything.
Yep. Invasive species tend to wreak havoc. And now aren't they talking about doing like open season python hunting?
I think they already did that. Yeah,
Did they?
yeah,
And that'd be
because
fun to do.
there's that, and then there's iguanas too. Like a certain kind of iguana that they're also hunting openly now because there's just so many of them. Similar here in
Yeah.
Texas, there's a bunch of boar, and
Yeah.
and the regulation here is that if you're on private property, you don't need a tag or a license to hunt as many boars as you want. On public land, you still need a license.
Okay.
So
Yeah, California is pretty similar with that. We have a pig problem. Not quite like Texas or some of the other southern states, or I think even spread up even to like Illinois in that whole
mm,
area. But it's year round. You still need a license. You still I actually don't think you need a tag. Don't quote me on that. Got to look into that one.
mm,
But I do know on certain private properties, like there's a ranch that's near me where you don't need a license. It's outside of the lead free zone, and you just pay for each pig that you kill. But invasive species hunting is also goes in like the just protecting the ecosystem in that sense as well. But you can also benefit from it from getting the meat. And a lot of the meat's donated as well. Some people just try to do their part and cull the numbers and keep it down to limit the destruction of them, of the ecosystem, the land, and private properties and such. And then they take that meat and donate it to like food shelters and homeless programs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind of all plays together, right? Trophy, conservation, sport, food, all that kind of encompasses into like certain types of invasive species control. Like when you're hunting, like in the case here of Texas, like if it's a certain amount of weight to the boar, it's eaten. If not, some people just take the skull and just mount the skull, get that cleaned up and mount it. Others they donate it to like a zoo or wild or a tiger farm or whatever, and um, they donate it. Yeah, they donate it like to stuff
Tiger
like
farm.
that, or they sometimes they just leave it and like coyotes or something will come and take the meat and like they'll clean it up. And it goes back to the ecosystem, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and the problem, like, I only know specifically about pigs more or less just because I've been studying that here or reading about it, and yeah, like the problem with pigs when when they forage and eat all this stuff, assuming they're not like because they're omnivores, so assuming they're not like hunting anything, they eat everything from the plant all the way down to the root itself. So it's not like a cow where a cow like will eat grass, but they'll eat the top part of the grass, kind of giving like the grass a haircut almost.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll eat that. So that's why with cows, you're able to like put them in one area, then they'll graze for a while, for maybe like a few days or whatever. I'm not too certain about that. Then they move them to another area, then they graze there. So that gives the grass some time to bring back up. And then with the manure that is laid around there, that helps it grow. And then you're able to do that with cows. But with pigs, I mean, with boar specifically, you can't really do that because they eat the entire root. So then it's gone. It's just gone.
Yep. And then that's just the plant life of it. So like here in California, they've actually been moving into the cities. So you'll have I don't know if it's LA. It tends to be more north, but you'll just have roving gangs of pigs just running through the city, destroying people's property, whether it be plants or structural damage, or just running amok, snatching up people's pets, destroying cars, you know. So I believe there's actually a couple cities that allow for archery hunting within city limits
Oh no, no,
for
no kidding.
pigs because it's gotten that bad.
Yeah, because I mean, I know even like California has a mountain lion problem, and like there's people that are upset that they put a hit on mountain lions, but it's like okay, well, there's a bunch of them, and apparently you can eat mountain lion. I think you were the one that told me once that you can. Um,
Yeah, I don't
and
know if that's still true, but I mean, technically, you can eat anything at least once.
well, in terms of that it tastes good, that's good eating. That's what I was referring to. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, but like they have like a mountain lion, and like there's one story where like an alpaca farm lost 11 alpacas in like one night, where the mountain lion just killed 11 alpacas, didn't even eat them all, only ate like probably only ate one, or I don't think it even ate anything really. But it's like they're not just killing for food; they're just killing to kill. Like for whatever reason, I don't understand mountain lions, so it's like
It's just how cats be.
yeah, that is how cats be, dude. Dude, like chickens and roosters, dude, are very vicious as well, dude. Like,
Oh, dude, roosters. I hate those guys.
dude, I was watching this. I forgot this one other show, and they were talking about like apparently like roosters, because they're so like I guess in the sense of like not the stigma that comes around the word, but like they're so like macho that they have to protect their their hens at whatever
Hmm.
cost. So even though they're gonna go in and fight to die, they'll still come at you.
Oh yeah, they're savage. I respect them. But man,
Yeah.
sometimes I just want to go in and get some eggs. I don't want to be attacked.
Yeah, dude, and like that's the thing of that's pretty respectable, but it's like if those things are basically miniature dinosaurs, and you know,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like if they were bigger, they mess us
Oh,
up. If they were like the size of an emu or an ostrich, we'd be dead.
oh yeah. They take over.
for sure. The Great Emu War. Let's not talk about that.
Rip
uh,
Australia.
all right, really quick. Australia lost. They waged the war on emus and lost. When was that? When did that happen?
Oh, I can't remember the time frame for it. But it was a while ago.
Right, but
I
like
can't,
that actually happened. Where like
it Yeah, they got overran, but I mean, to be fair, I think they were given like some real crappy like machine guns that barely worked and like a handful of ammo, and you only got so many bullets. And he's got waves of emus just coming at you.
but and then going back to I mean conservation hunting really like and all that stuff and there's different things like that I think people get upset about, right? Like you said, like people are well intentioned. um but like for example when you look at like trophy hunting like in Africa, like I think the people that go there the most are Americans and people from the United Kingdom. They're the ones that spend the most amount of money, hunting big game out there. Uh, but the problem with that, like the stigma around that, is that people think that, oh, I'm just being a butt and I'm just gonna go and shoot a big animal just because I can. I mean, the locals there kind of benefit from that, right?
Oh yeah, it's a major business out there. Um, because it's not cheap to do it. That's why it's mostly rich people who are doing it, and it's not just a indiscriminate like, okay, you go and buy a lion tag. Now you could just go shoot whatever lion. No, these agencies they study the animals, they see what's going on, and they'll see like, okay, so the lion numbers are starting to dwindle. Why is that? It's like, oh, because the alpha is getting old, but he's still like killing off all the younger ones. So he's not breeding as much. He's killing off some stronger or some younger lions that could be helping the population grow. So he needs to go. So they'll put him essentially a hit out on him, and then someone will come in and be like, all right, here's, I don't know how much it was, but so for the sake of not misquoting, I'm not going to give a number. I just know it's expensive.
Mm.
Um, and then they take that money, and then that goes into the land preservation there, population expansion for certain species, and just the general functioning of like the villages there. So then the hunter will go in, and he's not just, or they aren't just going in by themselves. They're guided. They have a tour, a hunter guide that's assigned to them, and then they track down the exact one that needs to go. They do the deed. The hunter takes what he wants from it, and then the rest of it is donated to the village for meat or whatever they're going to use it for. So the animal is used, and the sport hunter gets what they want out of it, and then the money goes back into the economy there and does more good for population than just letting it run wild.
Yeah, because I think right around the time that the whole thing with like Cecil the Lion came about, before and after, like I was looking into that, and like there's certain countries in Africa that will use that money, and whatever regulatory body that's overseeing the conservation of the wildlife, they'll take it, they'll pay either farmers, or they'll pay literally what is it? Not the I forgot the word, but they'll pay people to shoot poachers, and
Oh yeah.
that's I think the misconception when we hear about like the was it the black African rhino, the white African rhino, I don't remember. That now is basically is uh, it's now formally declared extinct because I think there's only one. It can't really reproduce anymore, or I don't know the exact situations, but I know it's formally it's now declared extinct. And like you see, like they see that, and you're like, damn, that's messed up. And yeah, absolutely, it's 100% messed up. And hunters feel the same way. At least a lot of the ones, almost all of the ones that I've talked to, they'll feel the same way when they don't want species to go extinct. They want species to thrive. So, but you see the stories of like poachers taking the horns off the rhino for whatever reason, killing the entire rhino, leaving it there just for the horn, or because on
Yep.
the black market is being sold, and they automatically attribute that to everybody that's a hunter or even a trophy hunter.
Yeah. They don't separate the distinction between hunters and poachers. I think anyone that just goes and shoots an animal is a hunter. And it's not. Like poachers don't follow the law. That's why they're poachers. They don't care about numbers. They don't care about using anything that isn't going to gain them a profit.
Yeah, and yeah, and like the thing is like because of the pressure of like because now we have the internet, right? So we can get that information like super quick because of the pressure from people that they, like you said, they're good-hearted, but sometimes they don't have all the information. They put pressure on this, and then people don't want to go and hunt anymore. So then, in certain state, I think like what is it, Zimbabwe? I forgot what in certain countries. Uh, Now they're that business that kept the conservation efforts going and everything is dwindling because there's nobody that wants to go and go and hunt anymore. And like some of these hunts, dude, they're not cheap. Like I talked to somebody and they told me that per person it was like almost like 170,000 or something like that. Somewhere it's well above the 100,000
Yeah.
for one person, and that person paid for him and his son. So so it's
That's a
not
lot of
cheap.
money. That's
It
a
is a
lot of
lot of
money.
money. And again, depending on where you're at in Africa, I know some of them like they actually give some of the money out to the locals too.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, it's like it's a lot more benefit than what we see, and a lot of that is information, right? So, but this kind of I'll use this quick story to kind of segue into their next topic. But um, we all heard about that female hunter that I believe she commit suicide? I mean, I don't remember, but she was harassed online because she shot a giraffe and she posted a picture of her kill, right? So back to what you were saying about like lion numbers dwindling. So this country, their the giraffe population was in trouble, um, and it was because this one male giraffe was killing all the younger giraffes, and he was no longer producing offspring. So it was hard to keep the population growing. Like I think from when they put the hit on him, he had already killed 3 or 4, I think three younger males that were ready that can well produce more offspring. So that's why they put a hit on him. And I forgot how much the tag went. This person got it. This person shot it. Gave the meat to the locals and everything. They ate the giraffe. A bunch of people were giving her mad stuff, mad shit over the internet. And again, I mean, it's part of like not having the right information because it's like, well, what else are you going to do if you let that animal live? I mean, it's going to keep wiping out other males, and the population is not going to grow. And that's just what the wildlife is sometimes. Like there's that hierarchy,
Yeah.
but it goes back to not having the right information, which kind of segues into our next topic, like why is it so easy to be so negative on the internet? Like, I mean, I feel like it's a very obvious question, but yeah, like it's just so easy, right? Like, yeah.
Why is it so easy to be so negative on the internet? Oh, well, one, it gets more, it gets a rise out of people. People are much more, I don't know if receptive would be the right word, but we'll use it. People are much more receptive to negativity than positivity. So it's like one trick I use on the internet. It's like if I want to know the answer to something, I'll just pretend like I know the answer and use the wrong answer, and then people get mad at me. You'd be like, "No, this is the right answer," and like, all right, cool. Well, that was easy, But it's you have this mask, and people just there's no repercussions to it. So you have this buffer between you and somebody else, and you can say and do whatever you want, and it's never going to come back at you if you're smart about it. Anyway, you got people on Facebook with their real name and their cell phone number and their email. Every little bit of information you need to track them down, pulling this stuff. But for the most part, a lot of the griefers and that do stuff like that aren't rocking their actual information.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so easy to really put up a veil. And I mean, behind the screen, I mean, you don't necessarily have to even put an avatar or anything. You can just put a blank, you know,
Mm-hmm.
symbol to your right next to your name or whatever name that you're choosing to put and go to town, um, I think I think that's kind of like stems from the issue of like not being comfortable with confrontation. I mean, you look at like what happened during what happens because it's not just in every it's this past election, but you look at like I mean, again, we're not talking politics because that's not what the podcast is about. But you look at like that, people want to express their opinion, but when they get challenged, they end up blocking each other because they don't want to hear a counter to that, whether it's
Oh,
wrong or right, a right counter or whatever, you know. And it's like part of me thinks like, well, why do you want to like then why do you put that opinion out there? Why do you put that statement out there? Why do you put that out there if you don't want anybody to really challenge you or even comment on it? So I think a lot of that too, like I mean, because also like you want to hold back the impulse to like respond to something negative too, because it's like you don't want to contribute to that. But again, because you think, well, I'm never going to see this person ever in my life, I can just say this, whether I'm right or wrong, or I'm doing it just for trolling or for the sake of trying to disprove some kind of misinformation or something like that. You're never going to see the person again. It's not going to hurt. Uh, and I think that's kind of, I mean, it's an obvious answer. Like that's kind of the reason why like people tend to be negative on there. And it's just, I think a lot of that is like algorithms and stuff. Because I mean, when you look at Facebook, like the reason why I dropped Facebook is because it's just become like literally a cesspool of just negative comments.
yeah. I mean, when you get that many people in one place with that many strong opinions, regardless of any research into it or not, and the unwillingness to change their mind, even when presented with evidence that's contrary to what they believe, then it's just going to turn into monkeys flinging poo. That's it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. And then,
people have an innate need to be right, and they feel like if their opinion is disproven, it's almost like a personal attack against them. I feel is what I've noticed from it. And there's that unwillingness to change their opinion because then they feel like they were wrong.
mm-hmm. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about, but like they're not able to separate the two. Like when you're talking about poaching and then trophy hunting.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Same thing when it comes to like the opinion, simply staying an opinion, whether it be a fact or not, versus your identity. And like and I think I'm just gonna bring up this particular industry just because I think that's the easiest one. But when you talk about like the diet and exercise and all that stuff, just health and fitness. Um, like how many times like have you seen like keto is the end all be all or keto is the worst thing ever, and you start they start having arguments over that, and it's like and like you see people like uh, carb fiend, and this is my Instagram handle because that's kind of what their identity is. But then it's like when you show them studies of like a high carb intake and what that can do to the body, which they are studies, and I'm not really quoting them right now. I'm just kind of to simplify the point I'm trying to make. I'm just saying it like this. But you see those studies, and then it's like, well, no, that's wrong, and then all this stuff. It's like, well, you have to read the study. Like, you have to read it, understand it, and go and see what the process is done. You can't always go by like, oh, well, who's funding the study? Because it's like, oh, well, if this person's funding the study, well, they obviously have a bias. Like, okay, bias or not, they're still putting out information. It's up to you if you want to vet it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you should never pull from one source.
Yeah.
Like you need to do your research across it because a study could be, oh, we came out with these studies and this is what we found, and then when you look into it, it's like, oh, they asked 14 people and they're
Yeah.
they're basing that on, so these 14 people now speak for millions, and that's the study. So like you can't take anything for face value. So even if there is a study, you got to look further into that study and look into other studies and compare and research. Plain and simple.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, like honestly, like there's nothing wrong with reading whatever information they put out. Just don't respond to them. Be like, all right, well, this person's probably wrong. Or okay, maybe this person's speaking from an anecdotal perspective, which again is not wrong or right, but the only thing we know for fact is whatever they're doing, whether short term, long term, depending on what point they're talking about that, it's working for them. Like you and I
Yeah.
have had friends where it's like like you've done keto and you've had good results with it, and then one of our friends is like, no, like keto is so bad and blah 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 blah, and
It's
you
like, well,
know,
it's working for me. Like I'm as healthy as I've ever been.
yeah,
So
and me specifically, I've done a form of keto, but it's not really like true keto, so I sometimes get some pushback from keto forums that respond like, hey, what about instead of 5 grams of 5% of your calories being from carbs, what about bumping it to 10 or even 15 and then dropping the fats? And that's not true keto. And I get all this backlash. And it's like, I'm just trying to create a conversation.
yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that, it works for everybody. For me, that kind of worked for me in terms of like sustainability and what I've gone from benefits when I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you can take that example and apply to almost anything. Like look at like, for example, bass fishermen. It's like, or when we look at like fishing, the fishing community in general, like some people like they're like, oh well, gotta fish for bass, or you're not really a fisherman and all that stuff. Or some people are like getting mad because of a certain type of technique that you use for a bass to catch a bass, and you see that all the time.
Yep. I think it just goes back to it's almost like a superior complex with that. It's like, no, you have to do it this way because it's what works for me and that's what's right and that's what it is. And if you don't do this, then you're not doing it right. But different strokes for different folks. Not everybody's the same. Um,
Yeah,
like my style of keto is different than your style of keto. Yours works for you, mine works for me. And for the majority of the people I've talked to, it's the way I do it isn't really accepted either. But and even when I tell people like, these are the results that I got from it, it's not for everybody. I would recommend you trying it, but like, so this is what I do, and you can start that from a baseline, see if it works for you, and if it doesn't, make adjustments because everybody's different.
yeah. Like in going back to my fishing example, it's like there's some people that like, I mean, it's we talk smack about each other all the time. I mean, it's fine when you're doing a sense for humor.
Oh yeah.
You see sometimes the memes and like they're okay, but there's times where it's like, no, this isn't beyond getting to be a joke. You're purposely trying to insult something that you don't know how to do, or just flat out don't like because it doesn't work for you. And it's like, doesn't work for you. Let other people are happy doing it. Why do you need to like shit on their parade? Like you don't have to.
Let people enjoy things.
Yeah, as long as it's safe, responsible, yeah, what's
Yeah.
what's the big deal about that? Like, um, one example recently, one of the people that I've met through the fishing community, cool guy, super nice dude. Um, so he's been posting pictures of a certain technique, and then there's a page specifically that's called that technique memes. I'm not specifying the technique just because I know some listeners might know who I'm talking about, but
Yeah, I get
um,
you. Don't want to do call outs.
yeah, but and that person or the person that was running the meme page copied a picture of my buddy, posted it with a clown face, and it's like worst angler ever, and start going to town in the caption. It's like, why? Like
Did he catch a fish?
he
Yes.
caught a fish
Kind of
apparently
hard to be
because
the worst angler if you caught a fish.
exactly. And some of the criticism was like, oh, he's long arming it, which for those that don't know, long arming basically, like the name is, like the words kind of explicitly kind of or imply, you get the fish, you hold it with your arm extended towards the camera to kind of make it look bigger. At the end of the day, you really kind of know what the size of the fish really is.
They
So I
do
don't
that
really
in
see how
hunting
that's a
too.
big, huh?
They do that in hunting too. Like
Yeah,
when you post with the animal, you take a few steps back and kneel down, so it makes you look smaller, makes the animal look bigger. It's
yeah,
it's for fun. It's like the whole thing of like fisherman's lies, or what was it, fisherman's tales, like, oh, I caught a fish this big but nobody was there to see it. Like it's all in the fun of it. Like everyone knows they're bullshit, and unless you're there to see it, it is what it is. But it's all good fun, and to take it that seriously.
Or the modern day of that is, oh, I caught a 10-pounder. Where's the scale, bro?
Yeah.
Oh, I left the scale at home, didn't weigh it. Like,
Yep.
what? Like, what? Like, I mean, some people you can tell that they're genuine, but some people it's like, well, I'm sorry, I need to see the receipt. Like, you're
Yeah.
saying it's a 10-pounder, like I got to see a receipt, right? And that kind of stuff, like you joke about it, and sometimes like, yeah, people like if you lie about certain catches or certain hunts, like, yeah, then people are just not gonna take you seriously. But in the example that I was talking about, it's like, dude, like you straight up like put this dude on blast on the internet for no purpose. I mean, what, you're trying to expect to get the clout going? Like that's
Yeah.
another thing that I feel people
That's
are
yeah.
right. Yeah, you're already shaking
Yep.
your head like, yeah, like people
the
do it
the,
for the
the
clout.
internet's for clout, man. Like it's the internet hate machine. Like unfortunately, negativity sells. Hate
Mm-hmm.
generates views. That's why headliners are the way they are. That's why the internet is the way they are, because you're more likely to click on something that's about to bad talk someone or bring something down and read that than you are to be like, oh, this is why this person's a good person. This is why they're right. This is why this, and this. You know?
Yeah, like if you see the headline, this person adopted 3 puppies. Like people like, oh, and but they won't even click the link. But you see,
Yeah.
find out why this person kicked 3 puppies. It's like, oh, what?
Oh,
And you click.
yep. You'll read the whole thing. You'll share, and well, actually, the majority of people won't even read the article. They'll see the headline, then they'll just share it.
Yeah, you know what? Like they'll either see the headline, share it. Oh yeah, that's exactly right, because they'll just share it. And I mean, the person that pumped that out, they got what they wanted. The algorithm's gonna see, oh well, this is sharing, so this must be popular. So they'll basically they'll do its algorithm thing, and then all of a sudden see like, oh well, this person likes the categories of puppies, and they'll send them puppies of
Yeah.
supposedly being kicked when it could
This
basically
this
be a
person
lie.
likes this person likes articles about puppies being kicked. Time to send them more hate in the timeline.
Exactly, dude. And even that, like, it's just this person. All they do is post puppies. They use a puppy hashtag puppies for life or whatever. They're gonna see the negative articles of that too as well. And so and I think most likely they'll see not the negative ones first before they do they see any positive ones.
Yep.
So
Hate
it's
sells.
clout. Yeah, it's clout. So
Clout. That's
we've
YouTube.
answered our very obvious question in multiple points. But I think a lot of that though kind of stems from like people maybe sometimes having a lack of purpose. Because I think purpose is huge when it comes to mental health, right? A lot of people want to feel appreciated. A lot of people want to feel like they're worth something, because when you look at like depression and things like that, sometimes it's like, well, I'm worthless and stuff like that. Um, I mean, I can't really speak for everybody that suffers from depression, but I just see these common things from talking to people, reading studies, and things like that. I think purpose is really huge, and that's kind of feeds into like why it's easy to be negative. Like, because if you want to be like, we're going back to what we're talking about hunting, like pro animal rights, or you love the animals, you feel your purpose is to protect the animals as much as you can. So it's easy to get really angry because that's what sometimes you might think that that's your purpose. When in reality, like the people do it because it's, again, goes what we were talking about throughout this episode. It ties into their identity and all that other stuff, because that's the feeling that they get, like, oh, this is who I am, this is why. Maybe, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but uh, essentially, do you think purpose kind of ties into identity?
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%. I feel like probably identity comes first to purpose, because you
Mm-hmm.
tend to find purpose in something rather than find your identity through purpose. I believe anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So then once they get to that point of like, okay, so this is my identity based on these things that I'm interested in, or these things that I believe in. And now my purpose is to further these goals. So yeah, like you said, because now they're tied to their identity. Anything that goes against what they believe or what they believe is their purpose to be is now a personal attack against them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think since the internet, and more so since some of the the lockdowns that happened last year, I think more and more people are struggling to find that, right?
Well, it's hard to
So,
find purpose when you're locked in your house.
right. So maybe, I mean, especially, and then not to mention that some people lost their purpose. Like their purpose is a provider to their family. Their purpose is to work a certain job, and then they can't. They're being told because of the lockdown they can't work that job, so then they lose their purpose. And I mean, you saw in terms of suicide attempts and suicide, and suicides going up. You're looking, and I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say like there's certain towns that literally went from 5 calls per week to like 7 calls per day or something like that. Some ridiculous number, which is not a good number at all. So yeah, so it's 100%. Like a purpose is 100%. It's, I mean, I'm not gonna say 100% because again, not everybody.
99.99%.
It's kind of hard to put a percentage on that, but it's like it's but for a lot of people, purpose is heavily tied around the the identity and sometimes even the ego, and both of them at the same time. Because I think, I mean, ego is something that we can't necessarily neglect as well, and sometimes we have to keep it in check. And um, there's a lot of times where we see certain negativity posts where it's just purely coming from ego, like I am like this, so I am this righteous, or it has to be done this way because this is the way I do it, and it's the right way. And I've seen across I've came across several people throughout life, not necessarily on the internet or not necessarily since I've done this podcast or the Instagram stuff, just in general, like they get
Yep.
upset.
Ego is a big factor in a lot of things. And, that plays into taking things personally because you feel like your ego's attacked or your ego's being attacked, your personal identity is being attacked, your beliefs are being attacked just because it differs from somebody else's. So ego gets in the way of a lot. Ego makes you do and say some stupid things for I think unreasonable reasons personally. And we're all, what's the word I'm looking for?
Flawed.
Yeah, we're all flawed and we've all had our moments with it. Nobody's perfect, but as long as you try to keep your ego in check, try to not take things personally, and always remember that not every like the world isn't against you. It's just not everyone's going to believe what you believe. Not everyone's going to have the same ideals, and it's not a personal attack against you unless they're coming at you like that. But you can
Yeah.
generally tell the difference between like you're a terrible person versus I just don't agree with you. And you can disagree and not have a personal attack against someone. Like we don't
Yeah.
always agree on everything, but we get along fine. Like I have a lot of people in my friends groups and people that I talk to that I don't agree with a lot of different things, but we can have civil conversations about these to have different perspectives on that
Hmm.
because we both don't take it as personal attacks because you
Yeah.
keep your ego in check. But when
Yeah.
we
I
get that
mean,
on the internet with strangers that you don't know, and so much being lost in translation of text.
that there you go. I was about to when I was trying to interrupt you, I was about to say that right there.
Oh
Yeah, because I mean, even like just communication through texting on in a phone.
yeah,
Some like for like I'll give one example. Like one of my closest friends, uh, when we were in college, I would always pick her and a roommate up to go to wherever we're gonna go to hang out, like to a party or to just the bar or whatever. And she would always be like, "Hey, so we're both going to this. Do you want to pick me up?" The one time I said sure, because normally I say like yeah, yeah. The one time I said sure, I get immediately a text back like, "Is something wrong?" I'm like, "Huh?" And I literally responded with like, "Huh?" She's like, yeah, it's something
Yeah,
wrong. Like, do you not want to pick us up? I'm like, no, no, no. Why would you think that? Well, because you said sure. I'm like, yeah, I said sure, as in yes, I will pick you up. Like, when have I not wanted to pick you up just for not wanting to pick you up? And it's
yeah.
because it's like
That
I think at that time, like it was being used kind of like sarcastically, right? Like, sure,
mhm.
like so that's probably what she saw. I didn't realize that that was being used like that. So, but if she had seen my face, being like, yeah, sure, I'll pick you up.
Yeah, sure gets me in trouble a lot because it's something I say. It's not a big thing to me, so it's just like sure, like I'll do that, whatever, no big deal. But sometimes I'll say it and same thing, like, oh, I mean, you don't have to. I'm like, I said sure, like it's fine. Like I don't care. If I didn't want to do it, I'd say no. But
Yeah,
and then like you said too, like even when I'm talking with people through text, like sometimes I'll receive a text and be like, I don't know how I should take this. It can be taken this way. I don't think it's going to be. And sometimes I'll just call them up, be like, hey, I read it this way. I don't think that's how you're trying to come across, but it like how is this? And they'll either be like, oh yeah, no, fuck you, or, or they'll be like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. So just in general with that, I I find the majority of times is if something can be taken negatively
it will
with
be.
people, it's not that case. On the internet, if something can be taken negatively, it probably is.
It will. Yeah, it will be taking it. Yeah, because yeah, yeah, and I think I forgot where I had something that's in my tongue, but because it was to you're saying like like hey like sometimes here you go sometimes I'll just be like I'm confused, did you mean this? And I'll literally say, because like I literally am confused, like there's no lie when I say I'm confused, because I'm like I go look at something, I'm like I don't know how I should take this, kind of like what you were saying, yeah, like I don't know how to take this, but again, we're going back to ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if ego and identity, when someone feels attacked and they ask you a question already coming in with from a position of anger or hesitation or whatever, like you say something like sure, they're going to take the negative route always. I think
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of times, I mean, it's weird because we tend to want to take the path of least resistance, but when we're talking about interactions, we take the negative path, with which often leads to more resistance. That's kind of ironic,
yeah.
right?
Never actually thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like it's really weird because like a lot of times, whether that's a flaw in human psyche or whatever, but we do take the path of least resistance, and then oftentimes when it comes to certain things, we go negative, and that's our first instinct, and it just causes more trouble than it really helps solve.
Yep. But I
I
just got to
mean,
try and filter it through. Like, and at the end of the day, even if someone is coming at you like that, they are being negative. It only has so much power as you allow it to have.
right,
Like
right.
if you continue to go into it with them, it's only going to amplify, and then you're allowing that to affect you. You're allowing that in. Whereas you can just be like, all right, this person's a dick. I'm just going to leave.
Problem solved.
And yeah, problem solved. You go about your day and you don't have to talk to them again. You don't have to see them. And words are words. They only have as much power as you allow them to have. So
Mm-hmm.
dwell on it for a bit, get it out of your system. You're good. Anything after 5-10 minutes, I feel like you're just kind of allowing it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of sucks that people process things differently, right? But going back to what we're talking about, like ego and identity and how purpose, when you criticize a purpose, you feel like being attacked because it's so tied to identity. I mean, that goes to, for example, like when someone like for example, when I got into archery, uh, like actually no, I even a most recent example, I was trying to find a, I've been telling you I was trying to fish for carp.
Mm-hmm.
I finally hooked on 3 carp, and boy are they fun to fight. it's
Yep.
I'm looking at a bass and I'm like, you're a soft bitch, because it's like, dude, like a 5 pound like carp was fighting like a 10-pound bass. Or I mean, I wouldn't know what a 10-pound bass is. The most I caught was a 5-pound bass, but I know it did
Only a
not fight that
5. I
way.
caught a 15-pounder, bro.
Where's the scale?
Left it at home, bro. Batteries are dead.
But but so yeah, and back to the whole thing. Like I got carp and I had it in a net, right? Granted, I didn't know that the skin on the carp or the slime coating on the carp is so delicate, which again I would have never thought because of how beast of a carp, how beast of a fish they really are. And I had it in the net. Granted, I had it over water, but I didn't have it in the water. And I took the hook out, and then I put the net down next to right where a rock is, but the net, kind of collapses, so it kind of created like a little bed. Took the carp out, had the camera ready, it fell. Like it just flopped around and it just fell and then rolled. So now it was grassy. Picked it up again, put the 10-second timer on the camera this time, and then boom, I got the picture. And so I got not crap, but I got some criticism. Well, I got crap from one person, like legit, like was being sarcastic, was being kind of rude. Another person wasn't as rude, but basically was like he kind of like backhanded called. He gave me a backhanded compliment almost because he kind of called me not an experienced sportsman because he was like, well, if you're going to be targeting carp more often, I suggest you get a mat. Because the skin is very delicate. They're very strong beasts, but they're also very delicate beasts, and we can all do a little bit better to be better outdoorsmen. Good catch though. Granted, again, he was just being given, I guess, good criticism. That's the way I took it. Like I took it, hey, well, he has a point.
Yeah.
But other people I've seen where like they comment on the way, like with firearms or archery. That's what I got my examples confused. But with firearms or archery, I've seen people in both types of sport where you comment on certain safety issues and they take it so offensively. Like I posted a comment where it's like, "Hey, trigger discipline," because they were doing a skit with a firearm. The dude had his finger on his trigger, and I'm like, "Urgh!" Like
Yeah.
one thing we know, like finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot. And I've seen somebody else being commented on their forum when it comes to archery, and I've seen the responses they had, and I was like, dude, like they didn't say like, oh, you suck or anything. They just literally said, hey, do this. It'll improve your form. And it goes
Well, there's
back
a
to their
difference
field
between
jack.
yeah. Well, there's a difference between criticism and constructive criticism as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can give criticism without tearing somebody down, and if you're helping them in that aspect.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like a lot of people do that. I feel like a lot of in terms of the internet is they use criticism to bring others down to make them feel like they're above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was very surprised.
Ego.
Yeah. There you go. Ego. Yeah. And I was very surprised by that carp comment. And I was all right, fair enough. I'm looking into buying a carp mat now. So, because I do
Yeah,
want to target more carp because, dude, man, they're so fun.
that they are.
Dude, and I want
But
to catch, huh?
oh no, go for it.
I was just going to say, I want to catch a 15-pounder.
Go for it. Just remember, bring the scale.
I'm never going to know because the scale for carp, dude, you can't just do the lip gripper thing because those things, that'll mess them up. So, the only thing I can really do is try measuring it. If it's like that big, then I know it's probably like above 10 pounds.
I think it's safe to assume.
It definitely is safe to assume. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, speaking of the scale, I may or may have not caught my PB catfish. The reason why I say that, I didn't weigh it. And I had my scale with me.
Shame.
That was a chunky catfish, man. It was a chunky catfish.
I love catching cat. They're fun.
Dude, this thing, holy crap. It bent my the little rod holder. I had the little spiral one.
Mm-hmm.
It bent it forward. But yeah, dude, because I caught another catfish in that same spot that I was just hoping to catch either a catfish or a carp. I'd be happier with the carp, of course, but I threw it out there a week ago, and this catfish was 5.5, and I did weigh that one 5.5. But the whole rod, like you see it go bending, 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 boom! Now it's horizontally the entire rod. The only reason why that happened is because the rod holder was in a soft, it was stuck in soft sand, so the
Hmm.
rod holder kind of went down. So because it was kind of soft, but this one, even though it was the same spot, I put it in much more firmer ground, so that one wasn't moving. So even with that, the rod holder bent forward, and I was like, "Ooh!" So I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Dude, this thing, I am guessing, and I'm saying guessing because again, I don't know, 7 to 8 pounds."
I mean, they get big.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me,
Well,
especially.
I want to catch a 15-pound flathead or 30
Oh
pound
yeah.
flathead.
I was watching see that show River Monsters, I think it was called.
I love that show.
Yeah, the guy goes over there to catch those.
Wells
They're
catfish.
like that the corpse eating ones.
Yeah, the
The
ones in
man,
Spain.
uh, I think it was like India.
Okay, I haven't seen that episode.
Yeah, because like they're massive man eater catfish because it's like one of the burying rituals that the natives had there, people in that region were to like put the bodies of the dead into the river, and these catfish would eat them, and they would just grow to these massive sizes, like the size of a man. I'm probably overestimating a bit because I it's been a while since I see that episode. It's been years, but I want to catch a fish that's as big as me.
Hey, I want to see that episode now. I'm gonna boot up Netflix
Yeah, check
because
it
I've
out.
seen the
I
one
actually
with
got to rewatch it now.
because I've seen the one where he goes to Spain because he goes to Oklahoma, right? The dude and like one of the dudes there, like he basically helped him noodle a catfish.
Hmm.
So when he goes to Spain, I think the locals are all making fun of him because he wants to noodle a Wells catfish, and the Wells catfish can easily be over 80 pounds just because catfish. and
Yeah.
and he brings that dude from Oklahoma, and like he's like telling him like, yeah, I'm gonna noodle that thing, and everybody's just like laughing at him, and they actually do get one, but it was like a 3-person job instead of two. Yeah, so
I'd
it's pretty cool.
imagine. I mean, 80-pound catfish, you're trying to wrangle that thing out of a hole with your arm.
Dude, and holy crap, if you get stuck with a snapping turtle, bye bye finger.
That's why you wear them gloves.
Yeah, yeah, there's really the worst that you can get is a bruise.
Yeah, I think they make Kevlar gloves with like lined with some other stuff to kind of prevent it. I mean, noodling seems fun. I just don't think that risk is worth it. I like my fingers. I need them for things.
Yeah, don't we all? All right, so we went a little bit over, but we had a good conversation. Um, the closing remarks, closing thoughts.
Just keep your ego in check. Don't take things personally. That's it. Like it's not worth it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll piggyback off that and just say kind of like, hey, it's easy to react impulsively to stuff that we see on the internet. Let's do our best to just inform ourselves before we make a decision or make an opinion. And to what you were saying, yeah, like we got to keep in mind that we have more control over situations than we think, but it's mostly within control of ourselves, how we react to things, how we digest information, how we interact with the person, and in terms of what we do. And at one point we can say like, hey, it's time to step back. So make sure that you remember that, and to avoid a little bit of trouble wherever you can. So, all right, well, hey, that concludes this episode. For those that are still watching and listening, thank you so much for your support. Again, like I said, likes, comment, subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and all the podcasting hosting services. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And yeah, we're gonna keep this conversation going. And I pretty soon, hopefully within the next month or within this month, there will be some merch to support the podcast. But I'll keep you guys updated from that. But all right, Garrett, thank you so much for coming on. stay after the
Yeah.
podcast so we can talk a little bit. But yeah, see you guys soon.
Yeah.